Hey all, here at OSMVTXReviews.com. You're watching our video review of the Cricket ZTE Score. This is a prepaid, non-contract based Android smartphone that's running 2.3 Gingerbread for Cricket Wireless here in the United States. The interesting thing about the ZTE Score is that, again, it has a low price tag of only $130 without a contract, but also that it has Muve music support from Cricket. This allows you to pay a monthly fee of $55 and then have unlimited access and download for music online, which is a more affordable way to download music if you are downloading high volumes of music, or if you want a music discovery tool that is more affordable in the long run than iTunes. That said, the phone itself is actually fairly ordinary. There's not too many features that differentiate itself from other Android handsets on the market. You have a 3.5-inch capacitive multi-touch enabled touchscreen with a 166 pixel per inch density, which is only okay, but that said, the screen itself is fairly bright and vibrant, and it's full of color. So surprisingly, the display itself is actually pretty sensitive and pretty easy to read, even in dark, brighter environments, which we're pretty impressed with. Now, the viewing angles, however, are pretty limited on this phone, and the reflective surface definitely makes it a little bit more of a glare magnet and a smudge magnet than we would have liked. Otherwise, the build quality of the device is actually okay. It's not too bad. It's made out of glass on the front, and there's a basically a plastic build around the edges, and it's very similar in terms of footprint to a iPhone 4S with that same 3.5-inch screen and the same overall dimensions, but it does weigh considerably less because it's made out of plastic instead of metal. Overall, the phone also managed to be fairly slim and thin, so it's basically a slate form factor that we've seen from many other phones out there these days. The front is dominated by a speaker and an ambient light sensor. There is no front-facing camera on this particular phone, so if you want to use WeChat, unfortunately, you're out of luck. The bottom device features 4 capacitive touchscreen displays, buttons. They correspond to the back, the menu, the home, and the search. These are backlit, so they will be able to be seen even in darker environments. The left-hand side device features a micro USB for charging and syncing, whereas the right features a dedicated camera shutter key for taking images with the 3.2 megapixel out of 3.2 megapixel fixed focus camera. There's also a hot swappable micro SD card slot, which allows you to take images and then swap out memory cards when the phone is still on, without having to remove the back cover, which is pretty nice. There's also a dedicated volume rocker, which is pretty easy to press. On the top of the device, you have access to the 3.5mm headphone jack and a power on and off switch. The phone also features stereo Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and GPS for your wireless needs, which are all fairly responsive. The phone also offers 3G support here in the United States. Now, as a CDMA phone, the phone also doesn't have. As a CDMA phone, it isn't a too high-end model here, so you only get a 600 MHz processor underneath the hood, and not too much RAM or memory at all. It barely has any built-in storage. In fact, this is one of our biggest critiques for this particular model by ZTE. The ZTE Score simply can't download too many applications from the Play or Android Marketplace before it gets overloaded and says that you have to delete some applications. In fact, we only downloaded 2 applications, the barcode scanner and then also a bubble breaker game, before the phone actually told us the memory was insufficient and we could no longer download any more applications from the phone. We tried to then basically move the applications to an SD card, but our memory was still severely low, and the phone still really was struggling and sluggish, so we had to actually reboot it and refresh it by turning it into manufacturer's settings. So overall, if you're planning on getting a phone with a lot of applications that you want to install, this is not the one for you. In fact, this is basically a stock install of Android, and that's all the phone can really handle. If you want to download more applications and more games, you're kind of out of luck, unless you want to really freeze up the phone, or you want to do the hacking of the phone. Then that might clear up some processor speed and storage for you to amp up the speed overall. Now, the processor itself coming in at 600 MHz is not bad at all. For most day-to-day tasks, you find that applications run smoothly, and menu navigation is actually a pretty lucid experience without too much skimmering or sluggishness going on. Occasionally, you'll find some sluggishness if you play some extensive 3D gaming applications. The phone will get more slow. That said, it's not too bad at all. As far as the camera is considered, at 3.2 megapixels is quite of low. That said, it actually picks up images quite well, which we were surprised at. Of course, fine details will be lost, but the camera capture speed as well as the color saturation are both pretty high. And of course, it has an accelerometer to help you with the rotation of the screen. There's also pinch to zoom for you to zoom in and out for different images, and you can also share your images to different services like Gmail, email, MMS text message, and also for Picasso and also for Facebook. So if we pinch in and zoom, you can see the multi-touch screen is fairly lucid and responsive. Now, something we didn't like was that the backlight for the buttons on the bottom turned off after a few seconds of inactivity instead of staying on when the screen is on. This means that in darker environments, they will sometimes stay off, and until you get used to them, you might struggle to find those locations. Of course, Muve Music is the main selling point of this phone, and it works pretty well as you expect. Now, the built-in speaker, the loudspeaker, for playing back music is relatively poor because of its tinny sound quality. That said, the stereo speaker and also the 3.5mm headphone jack are great options and alternatives to listening to music, and they work both pretty well. And again, Cricket and ZTE basically installed a stock Android build on this phone, so there's not too much things going on. You have live wallpapers that you saw there, and a few applications that are extras, including a Bubble Bash 2 game, which allows you to actually shoot these pinballs at multicolored at this pyramid on the top, and this allows you to actually eliminate these balls if you hit them to the same color. And the objective, of course, is to actually eliminate all of the different balls before the timer goes off, before your screen gets overfilled with them, and then you can win. This is a demo version of the game, however, and it's not the full version. The same can be said about the other applications installed on here, including a Documents to Go that you can see documents but you can't edit them, and also you also have a trial version of Uno. There's also a YouTube client built in. There's some storefront housed by Cricket instead of the Google one, but you have the standard marketplace here as well. Google services, including Gmail, are also present. Navigational services like Maps, the Gallery, the Clock are also here as well, and also Google Books. So taking a closer look at the web browsing experience is pretty lucid over Wi-Fi. Of course, over 3G speeds were actually pretty sluggish. One of our critiques for this phone, another critique for this phone in particular was the QWERTY keyboard. As you can see here, it's very small and cramped, and as a result, it's fairly difficult to actually press the correct keys and correct buttons on here when you're typing. And this is because Cricket and ZTE decided to go with a proprietary keyboard instead of the standard Android keyboard, which is actually pretty easy to use. We think that this is actually a downside and a just disappointing aspect of the phone because they decided to go pretty small, and thankfully the keyboard itself actually does offer swipe, so you can actually use it to swipe back and forth, and it definitely speeds up the responsiveness and the speed of the device. Of course, you can also rotate it to horizontal view, and it allows for the keyboard to be displayed in a more comfortable view for you to actually type on, and the screen is fairly responsive, and again, it's multi-touch enabled, so the keyboard and keys can be pressed simultaneously without any issues at all. Web browsing is a standard affair on this phone. It's not too fast, but not too slow either. Sometimes the web browser will crash if you're loading too complex pages, but overall it definitely works as advertised, and there is basic Flash elements built onto this device, but you won't be playing too much Flash elements or videos on here because they're going to stutter too much, but the native YouTube application that's built on here does a pretty good job of handling YouTube videos. There's also voice recognition for basic voice searches and voice commands. As far as battery life is concerned, it's on the medium side of the spectrum. It's going to last you through the day, but you probably should recharge it every 2 days or so. And standby mode is around a week. And also the reception is pretty strong, at least here in Seattle. And finally, we have to say that the call quality is actually pretty good with the microphone built here, but the speakerphone, again, is on the tinny side and muffled side of the spectrum. Overall, if you're looking for an inexpensive music-oriented device that offers Cricket's Muve music support, we think that the ZTE Score is a okay option for you to go with. It's at least better than previous attempts, and also it runs on Android in a pretty smooth version overall. Of course, you're going to get some hiccups if you download more applications, and the downside for this phone includes one, the fact that the screen is on the smaller side of the spectrum, and two, the fact that you don't have much memory, so it will definitely limit the amount of applications you can install on this phone and the games and apps that you can play around with. But overall, again, a pretty good entry-level Android, and if you're looking for more details, you can check out our full review on our website at osandvtxreviews.com. This has been our full video review of the Cricket ZTE Score. Thanks for watching.